Hey yo, what's good everybody? It's your boy Matthew Maley for MatthewMaley.com. It is Friday night. We are back on the couch, and it is time for another weekly movie review with yours truly. So this week I checked out something at Blockbuster Express that I really hadn't heard anything about, even though I liked the actor in it. But I didn't really know any of its background. I mean, what it was about, any of that. I actually saw a preview for it the day before on we have Cox Cable out here in Arizona, well, and in Nevada, but it was on the pay-per-view preview channel. It was the first time I even saw anything about it, and it looked interesting enough. And since nothing else really dropped, I figured I might as well check it out. So I am speaking of Machine Gun Preacher, which is starring Gerard Butler, Michelle Monaghan, Madeline Carroll, who looks a lot like Loretta McCready off of Justified, but is not. Really thought it was. IMDb, thank you. As well as Michael Shannon, who holds the distinction of being one of the truly creepiest looking people in the history of movies, television, stage acting, anything. Dude is creepy. Plus, he plays the main, I guess technically the main good guy on Boardwalk Empire. He plays the main alcohol agent, FBI agent on there. So, creepy looking dude, especially in this. So the basic point of the movie is Gerard Butler is a prisoner in Philadelphia. I'm sorry, in Pennsylvania, not specifically in Philadelphia. Gets released from prison, and I mean, he is just the quintessential bad guy biker. When you hear about bikers getting a bad reputation, this is why. Him and his boy, his best friend, played by Michael Shannon, are just, I mean, drinking, smoking, heroin, injecting, just bad people. Just the everything you ever have heard bad about bikers, these were these guys. So they ended up, first night out of prison, Gerard Butler finds out that his wife, played by Michelle Monaghan, is no longer stripping and is in fact found Jesus, and therefore has stopped stripping and is trying to get her life together, stop doing drugs, all that. Well, this throws Gerard Butler into a tizzy, if you will, showing how just much of an asshole he is to her, being abusive, both physically and verbally, how little he cares about his daughter. Just he's just a piece of shit, to be quite honest. I mean, he's just a piece of shit. So, pretty early on in the movie, we just see how much of a piece of shit he is when him and his best friend Donnie, played by Michael Shannon, knock over a heroin dealer's place. Just so happens to be a black guy, and plenty of racial epithets are thrown, just showing that this guy, there's nothing redeemable about him. He, steals, he shoots, he stabs, he does heroin, he screws anything that moves, just a bad guy. So, one night, after a very close encounter with a hitchhiker that they pick up, which leads to the hitchhiker being stabbed about 463,000 times, it really messes with Gerard Butler's mind. And so he pretty quickly, pretty much like instantaneously, sees that he needs to turn to Jesus and be done with this lifestyle, even though it ends up putting a lot of strain between him and his friend Donnie. So, in kind of the same type of epiphany that happened to convert him to religion in the first place, he also has an epiphany one night that his plan, or God's plan for him, is for him to open a church in Pennsylvania, as well as open a refugee camp in Africa. So after opening his church, which is done with all his own money and the business's money, once he got his life together, he really started getting serious about his business and work and, being a productive member of society. And when he went over and actually saw what was happening in the Sudan, really impacted him to where he wanted nothing more than to build this orphanage for all these children whose parents have been killed in the war within Sudan. So obviously there's going to be lots of problems that arise from random white guys showing up in the middle of Africa to build an orphanage, as well as all the problems that are at home thanks to him just dipping on his family after building a church. So that's where a lot of the movie builds, is within those parts, really showing the sacrifices that he's willing to make for these random children. And well, I'll get into that in a second. So after his first few attempts fail pretty miserably, he finally builds up this orphanage and keeps building and building and growing as a character, growing as a person, trying to save these children from incessant war and pretty much for sure death. That scared me. Sorry, we've got a thing that sprays out some smell good scents into the room, and being that it's 4 o'clock in the morning, that kind of just scared me. Wow. So it then gets into, showing how he's trying to juggle, both the aspects of his family, with the aspects of his friends, with the aspects of his church in Pennsylvania, with the aspects of being in Africa. And while this is all based on a true story, I did a lot of research, or well, at least some research, trying to find out more about it. And depending on what you read, there's a lot of negative publicity out there about Sam, I believe his name is Sam Childers. Yeah, Childers, who is the guy that this is all based on. So it's very interesting to see, depending on what perspective depending on what side you fall, because there's a lot of stuff out there saying Sam is an amazing rehabilitated person who did all this for all these people. But then you have the other half that said that in fact people in Sudan said they never even saw him out there, that the movie's completely BS, that people who were people that he said he helped swear on their lives that he never did a thing for them. So it's really interesting which side you fall on, which is also pretty ironic because the main enemy in the movie is Joseph Kony. And anybody who hasn't heard of the last name Kony, specifically in 2012, obviously never goes on the internet. Because the Kony 2012 movement was another very hot button type of topic. Excuse me. And again, it depends on which side you fall on it. I'm not, me from this website, I do not get into politics. That is not something that you find on my website. Everything here is shoes, movies, and poker. Things that I really like. But sometimes you got to go into politics a little bit. And one thing that, was huge on the political landscape this past year was Kony 2012. For those of you who don't know, Joseph Kony is the leader of the Lord's Republic Army, which is a rebel army in Sudan as well as other Central African countries, who just go around and doing the most depraved, despicable, horrible things you can even think of. Raping, murdering, burning alive, cutting off limbs, making children do sexual acts on their parents, making children kill their parents. Just the most horrible, messed up things you could ever think of. But there also is a lot of talk that, in fact, the whole Kony 2012 movement was actually just propaganda driven. And depending on what you read, some say Kony died literally years ago, that he hasn't been seen in Sudan in years, that he hasn't been killing people, that he hasn't been doing anything. So it really depends on which side you fall on it. I personally haven't done enough research to really form an opinion on it. I promise I'm not doing some little pussyfooting way around the subject. I really haven't done enough research. I've watched probably about 5 or 6 hours worth of documentation, probably about 4 on the against Kony side, and 4 on, well, I can't really say pro Kony side, but on the Kony is a BS campaign site, I guess you could say. So I really don't feel that I know enough about it to formulate my opinion. But I am very surprised that this movie didn't get more publicity, being that he really is the main bad guy in the movie. Even though he's not portrayed by anybody, it's not it's not like he's an actual character in the movie, but he is the one doing all the killing, and essentially his rebels are the ones that are making it so that there even is a need for this orphanage. So I really was surprised that this didn't get more publicity, especially since it has Gerard Butler, who's a good actor and a pretty well-known actor, and such a big topic. But the one thing that I won't say the one thing, but one of the things that I felt was kind of lacking within the movie was there wasn't a lot of transitions. And what I mean by that is that I don't feel that there was a whole lot of build-up. I mean, it was just like we got kind of thrown into multiple different scenes. And it's like, even in the scene where he becomes, where he decides he's going to become Christian and give up on the life that he lived, even that I thought felt rushed. And I thought some of it just felt forced, honestly. Even like later on when he's making these decisions that are completely changing his family's life, completely changing everything, I thought those were forced. And I know that's partly because they were trying to show the type of character that he was I'm going to go all in with anything that I do type of character. But I just felt that it could have been built up a little bit better, and that would have actually been better for the movie. There were some scenes where it just shows how rabid of a person he really was and how fierce and ferocious he was. At points turning on his own family, his own friends, his own congregation, his brothers that he's fighting arm in arm with in Africa. And I think that could have just been done a little bit better. Another thing that I thought was kind of ridiculous was how they made him out to just be this super soldier Rambo guy, where he's never had any military training, he's never had any, knowledge outside of just being a guy who loves guns. Now, personally, I love guns. I have a collection of over 30 guns. I go shooting all the time. I try to practice real-world shooting. I feel that if needed, I actually would be an above-average soldier on the battlefield. And let me say right now, in no way am I saying that I could do the things that people in the military do. Because those people, people that are fighting for our country and for countries around the world are incredible human beings and deserve our utmost respect. So please don't get it twisted of me saying that I, would be able to hop up off this couch right now, grab my scar, grab my SIG, and, go be the next, Purple Heart winning Medal of Valor guy. Or Medal of Honor guy. I'm not saying that. But I do believe with the proper training and all that, I believe I actually could be a pretty, at least an above average soldier. Well, they take this guy who is nothing but a gun-loving, biker, and they turn him into the Jason Bourne of the African drylands. And I thought that was just over the top, and I thought it took away from, it made it so that instead of me seeing this guy as a Robin Hood type savior, I almost, because of how they made him so over the top and better than any of these, fellow soldiers that he's fighting with who are all trained military, people, it just made me feel like I couldn't identify with him. And there's even a scene where when he's first getting there and he's talking to one of the other soldiers and he looks at his AK and he's like, oh, it's too dirty, you should clean it every day. Even that, it didn't come off as him trying to help the guy out as much as it came across as him being arrogant and a know-it-all asshole. So I definitely think that it could have been better done with a lot of those type of scenes. And rather than even just show a couple scenes of him training with the other soldiers or something, so it seemed a little bit more believable, rather than some guy who simply likes guns and therefore is the super soldier. I love guns. I've even done some, on the run type target shooting and, real world type training. But nothing is going to compare you or get you ready for actual combat. And that's just something, I don't know, I just thought that was a little over the top. And really did make it so I couldn't identify with the lead character. Another thing that I thought was really corny was there's a scene where they essentially start going on the offensive, and they're like, we're sick of, waiting around, we're going. And they blow up a truck with an RPG. Well, most of the LRA fighters, well, not most, but a good number are children. And children who have been either kidnapped from their families, forced to kill their families, all kinds of messed up stuff. And his whole message to the whole thing is he's trying to save these kids. Well, in the scene, they blow up this truck with an RPG without any issue. And as far as they know, that could have had kids in it. But then later on in that scene, they find a truck full of kids. They essentially get these kids to surrender. And it's this groundbreaking moment. And later, he actually is forced to shoot a younger kid. And it is this watershed moment where he can barely live with himself and whatever. And it's like, you just blew up a truck that very possibly could have had kids in it. You don't know. You didn't check first. You just fired first shot, ask questions later. And that's just what I kind of thought was like, I get it, you don't want to kill kids. I get it, you're doing it for the kids. But in the same sense, like, rather than blowing up that truck with an RPG, have him sitting there with an R700 bolt action sniper rifle, taking the shots, confirming that they're not kids. Like, I just thought that this didn't add up. So at the end of the day, now that I've talked you guys to death, what's my opinion of the movie? Well, I think it could have been a 4-star movie. I think it had a lot of elements of a good, thought-provoking, deep movie. But I don't think it hit it. I think it missed the target, personally. And I didn't really like how it ended. I don't know, there was just a lot of things I didn't like about it. And while I thought they showed his progression of becoming over the top, and in a way very much like Kony, which is something that one of the people actually says in it earlier on, is that he's just a mercenary and that he's starting the same way Kony did. And in a way they show that in a lot of ways, and they do draw parallels. I just thought that they didn't stick to any one storyline almost. And it was like, rather than build the story along this criteria, they kept jumping all over the place. And it was like, well, do we want to make it about, a recovering drug addict? Do we want to show the power of God? Do we want to show him being an action badass? Do we want to show how he's actually 1 second away from snapping? I don't know. I just thought overall that they tried to do too many things with it rather than sticking to one. And for that reason, I'm giving it 3 stars. And to me, it was a very average movie. Just very I can't really even say that I'm that glad I saw it, but I watched it while driving in my car. No, I didn't watch it. Well, at least for the first probably 30, 40 minutes of it. And then I watched the rest of it, kind of when I didn't have anything to do. So I don't feel that I wasted time watching it, but I don't really feel that I gained anything from watching it. So at the end of the day, 3-star movie. I can't really tell you to go see it. I can't even tell you that it's worth the $3 you're going to spend on it, because it's a new release at Blockbuster. So at the end of the day, it's really up to you. If you like Gerard Butler, or you're religious, or you feel something towards saving children in Sudan, maybe watch it. But realize it's very brutal, it's very violent, it's very over the top in so many ways. And I don't know, I don't really feel like anything was gained by watching it. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think if you've seen Machine Gun Preacher, and how you felt about it. Overall, to me, 3-star movie. Gerard Butler did a very good job. Michelle Monaghan did a good job. Was it Michael Summers? No, Michael Shannon did a very good job, and so did Madeline Carroll, as well as a lot of the kids who played, you know, the orphans in Africa, as well as some of the African army. But I really didn't feel much gain from it. So, at the end of the day, 3 stars. I wouldn't recommend it, and there you go. So as always, thank you guys for checking out my videos. I've been getting a ton of new followers on Twitter. I've been getting a bunch more views on my videos, so I really appreciate it, everybody. I've been giving out lots of cards to everybody while I've been here in Vegas and trying to make my presence felt up at the World Series. So hopefully it's been paying off. And as always, stay tuned. Got a lot of videos that are going to be popping up. So, well, keep watching. As always, you can check out the rest of my videos on MatthewMaley.com. Search, or just go to MatthewMaley.com, click the video blog tab, or you can check me out on YouTube directly. Search for Matthew Maley Poker. Got all my videos on there that you can like, you can comment, and you can subscribe to my channel, so you'll be first to know when everything pops up, as well as watch them a few times and maybe send them over to some friends. That'd be cool. Your friends probably want to see my reviews, maybe. You have friends who like Jordans? Send it over. Poker player friends. All I'm asking. Of course, you can also check me out on Facebook. Search for Matthew Maley Poker, where you can like my page, suggest it to your friends, as well as check out all my videos and major updates on there. And finally, check me out on Twitter. Follow me at Matthew Maley. I appreciate everybody who's been following me lately. I've been posting lots about poker and the NBA Finals and all kinds of fun stuff. So, thank you as well for following me on there. So until the next video, I'm officially signing off. Hope everybody has a great weekend, and stay tuned. I'm going to be hitting the World Series tomorrow, and hopefully having some good news to report, as well as some basketball on Sunday. So, as always, thank you very much for checking out my videos, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out, everybody.